All right, I'm going to stand next. Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of our owners, Greg and Jen, who are out there, welcome to Chaucer's Books. As you notice, we've rearranged things, and it was all done by Greg and Jen. So if you need help moving, go ahead and ask Greg and Jen. I was impressed. Anyway, on behalf of them, thank you. Welcome to Chaucer's for Macduff, Everton, Mary Heebner, and of course Nick Welsh for the Book of Santa Barbara, Volume 2. In the front, we have Melissa, Mary, Dee, Paul, Kathleen, Suzanne, Jesse, Jess, Tanya, and Frankie selling books. We do ask that you purchase them prior to getting them signed. They're available behind the counters at the registers. After today, this part is over, we're going to go into the main room, set them up at a table and have them signed. We're going to line up in the philosophy aisle in the back. That's in dedication to this woman right here. I do ask that you turn off your cell phones at this time to give our photographer, artist, and writer undivided attention. And of course, as you can see, this will be filmed for our YouTube channel, which will be available tonight shortly after program's completion. Okay, let's begin. Today, I am so pleased to bring out these fine individuals for one of the most wonderful books that we've sold at Chaucer's. They're not only one of the best-selling books, but it's just one of the most popular books out there. And that's because, first, primarily in Macduff, Everton, the wonderful photographer. And what I love about Macduff's book and what he's done is you can see through his eyes what he sees in Santa Barbara. And it's not only the places and the venues and the scenery, it's beautiful, but it's the people as well. So we're so pleased to bring Macduff out here. And of course, we are very pleased to bring his better half, as he says, Mary Heebner, a wonderful artist who we get to see through her eyes, through her art. And it's quite emotional when you go to, let's say, Sullivan Goss or something, and you see her work. It just brings out a certain emotion. And then she's worked so hard on this project, so welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Third guy, I don't know who the hell this guy is. He's actually one of my dear friends and journalists, of course, for how many years has it been?
42.
42 years, dedicating his life to Santa Barbara and making sure that we're all in the know. So please welcome Nick Welsh.
Well, I just want to say thanks everybody for coming, and really thanks you guys for letting me be part of this book. The first thing I need to say is how amazingly patient you are. I put them off, and I had something going on. I can't do this. It makes up, we'd be at some party, and he'd see me at a party across the room. You, right near me. And so I really try to get patience on this. I really appreciate the determination you both showed. And ultimately, we got together at what? It was at Henry's Beach. We had breakfast. It was about 7:30 in the morning. Cold as shit. And this was a spot that was sort of near and dear to Macduff's heart, because when he was a kid, this is where he used to go surfing. And then when he became a young father, is where he took his son. And, it was interesting just being there and standing out at Henry's Beach and looking off to the left and looking off to the right. If you look to the left, which is not, of course, the direction, you saw all the oil derricks. And if you looked up the coast the other way, you saw UCSB and all the, Stork Pog and all this. And it was really interesting in that moment. I got kind of hit. For Macduff, Everton and this book really sort of was a portal to the history of Santa Barbara from the oil derricks, it kind of went in, but in the late 50s, to UCSB, which kind of went in a little bit sooner than that. But really, it was a part of Santa Barbara history. When we think of Santa Barbara history, we think about the earthquakes. We think about the oil spill, or maybe the riots. But there's so much history that we don't really talk about, we don't really know about. And as I was interviewing Macduff over breakfast, you kind of resurrect the story about his father was an Episcopal minister in town in the early 60s, really at the forefront of the civil rights movement at a time when that was the fair housing and housing discrimination. And he got a lot of grief for it, and he took a lot of flack, and ultimately he didn't get the promotion he should have gotten at the Episcopal Church. And then you think about, the son that you were taking down to the beach. His mom was one of the people who was adopted by Bobby and Floppy Hyde back up in the whole Mountain Drive period. So you have all of this history living here, and if you look at the book, really it is sort of, I don't want to simplify it too much, but it's sort of like the baby boom generation of Santa Barbara, and it's not a history that has really been done justice yet when you think about what Santa Barbara used to be as a sort of really rock-ribbed Republican bastion, and then it kind of somehow overnight shifted to as sort of knee-jerk liberal as you're going to get. And that had a lot to do with what happened at UCSB, and 18-year-olds getting the right to vote. But we take so much of that for granted, and certainly I do. And then, when you think about all the changes that took place, in the 70s and the 80s, you're okay, that just happened. But there was no, cutouts on how to make it happen. People sort of stumbled and found their way and were amazingly ingenious and created sort of the infrastructure for what we have now in terms of the politics and the environmental concerns and economics. And so in some way, again, this is just me foisting onto their work what I'm inclined to see anyway, was, you have these amazing photographs of the landscape and the skies and all this stuff that just knocks your socks off. But really, when you look at the people there, they were a lot of the people who made that transition happen. So it was really cool for me, as much of a pain in the ass as I was, to actually be part of it, and really to be part of a book. I'm the caboose in a book where Pico Iyer is the locomotive. And just, I've never actually, in all these years, I've never met Pico, which is just crazy. Now, I had one of the great all-time work dreams of my life about Pico's father, who accosted me in a line and told me journalism was not a tool by which the truth could ever be known. Now, I never met him either. But it was a troubling dream, and it really stuck with me. And I used to get my hair cut by a guy who, I would go in, Nicky Jackas, some of you might know him. He had a hair salon, and I would go in there, and there would be Pico's mom, me, and a guy from the Hells Angels. And I just thought, wow, only in Santa Barbara. So I just want to say thanks. You're welcome.
You weren't a pain in the ass. You were absolutely delightful to work with. I kept going, no, we don't need that. No,
No.
Nick, he will write pages. Pages. Yeah, Nick, but we don't want the book to weigh 20 pounds more. But it was such a fun process to bring his insight into the whole sense of what Santa Barbara is. It added a depth to it and a richness that I think is apparent in this book, because it not only shows gorgeous landscapes and architecture and people, but also events, things that bring us together in a community, like the the mudslides and the bucket brigade, and the protests about the oil spills and the political situations we find ourselves in, and also small gatherings of friends and community all over the city. And it's such a diverse city with wineries and restaurants and the beach and the mountains, and so what my small role was, it's Macduff's book, my small role was helping to set up shots and edit them and write captions to give little taglines to these wonderful photographs.
If I could just jump in there, I would just say, your captions are like this amazing fusion between poetry and journalism, and I'm really jealous. And I will say that getting to work with these two was really fun. My father used to have an expression for, romantic partnerships, and it was love and affliction. And what we got with these two is like the perfect balance of love and affliction. These guys are the best co-conspirators in the creative process. And when you're doing that, sometimes you're pointed in your commentary. And those,
no holds barred. That stinks.
It was really fun to watch you guys just navigate that. And it was like, and Mary would have, you would come in, that's a terrible picture, use this one, go back. And then, Macduff would say, wait a minute, I'm talking here. But
he's looking at the clouds, I'm looking at the woman's neck. It's going, no.
But what was so cool about it was like sort of the trust and affection that underlie everything that made that banter possible. So you guys are really lucky.
Yeah.
We are indeed.
So what do you got to say for yourself?
But is it really true that this book happened because somebody hurt your feelings? That you overheard some jerk at a art show say, "Yeah, well, anybody can take a nice picture if they, had the Santa Barbara landscape."
No, if
No,
they
it's the
travel,
opposite.
Oh, they travel all over the world. Yeah.
yeah. No, that's absolutely true. Yeah. No, I thought it was perfectly asinine. Remark.
It got your shackles up. It's like,
No, it was. They had absolutely no idea about composition and weighting and understanding that sometimes it takes days to get the right picture or the right everything coming together. Not that Mary and I ever sit around. I mean, she complains that. Well, she comments. We never complains, but she comments that hot food is always cold by the time we eat it, and cold food is always warm by the time we eat it.
because he's waiting for the light or doing something having to do with shooting, and
or that we completely miss a meal.
yeah, which is
But-
great, But also it's fun to be out and have an assignment. This is kind of a self-imposed assignment. It came actually during the time in 2008 when everything, the crash that they don't call a depression, but where magazines closed their doors and advertisements stopped and Macduff stopped getting assignments, and it's like, what do we do now? And he was also healing from a knee operation, and so a lot of walks on the beach, and the idea of kind of fused with healing and being here rather than having this as a pit stop for going off to here and there and everywhere.
The other thing was that I worked on I've been doing visual anthropological work down in Yucatan with a contemporary, the modern Maya, and I lived with the same families for 20 years, and the University of New Mexico Press published the first iteration of the work that I did. And I thought, fantastic, I finished this. And then right after that, NAFTA went through, which put immediately millions of Mexican farmers out of work, really, because the U.S. started dumping grains at up to 40% less than American farmers were producing it. And so when they started looking for work and coming across the border, you had Congress people disingenuously saying, "Oh, this is terrible, the immigration problem," and it's like, wait, you caused this problem, you put them out of work, and it's not surprising that they're looking for work. Anyway, so I knew that I had to, and then Cancun really took off, and then narco-traficantes became something. So, and then the evangelical movement really changed the whole dynamic of villages where everybody had been unified as a community, and suddenly the evangelicals were saying, we're not going to participate in these ceremonies because it's counter to our religion. So I've been really involved in that. And finally, University of Texas Press accepted my manuscript. And so 40 years later, I was getting a book published, and Mary suggested that we do a book on Santa Barbara, or we both suggested it to ourselves, and I didn't want to spend 40 years doing a book.
Believe me, either did I.
So the first book we did in 6 months.
Yeah, but then there's editing and putting it together, it's getting it to the printer, it's looking at proofs, and these were independently published. We tried to do everything locally, and Macduff laid it out on InDesign, and we had Joan Tapper, the wonderful comma queen, proofreader, and as one of her many talents, and Pico's essay and Nick's essay, and just putting that all together and reorganizing it so that the second edition made as much sense as the first one that we did. And so it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of focus, and you don't sleep that much. You kind of keep doing it till it's done. And for the first one, I said, well, can it come out on Valentine's Day? We can't do this by Christmas. And Macduff says, you've got to be kidding me. We got to get this out before Christmas. So that was in 2010. And he was right, but God.
We came down to Chaucer's, and because one of the things as probably everyone who's married knows, that one of the best ways to settle an argument is not to argue it yourself. And so ask Mari, what is the better...
the founder of Chaucer's, you know Mari. Yeah.
What is a better shopping time, Christmas or Valentine's Day or Groundhog's Day, which is Mary's favorite holiday? And Mary just looked askance at Mary.
You're nuts, girl.
And said, Christmas.
Yeah. So that was the first one, and then it's been 15 years. So
yeah, 2010.
A lot's happened, and this sort of rounds it out. As I said before, I think it's. Anybody has any questions?
Yes. I'm obviously familiar with the book, but talk a little bit about the process of how you added and what you subtracted and what you wanted to add, because the second book is bigger and it's the same, but it's different. And so I think people here want to know how you made those, what you went in thinking about, and how you made the choices that go into the second edition.
Okay.
Well, since this is collaborative, I'll start and then Mary will interrupt. And you'll see. Started by making, one of the things that we've always found is that rules, we make rules, but rules are made, are to be broken. So We decided that if somebody actually physically moved from town, that we would take them out of the book. Otherwise, it would stay. But as Charles Lloyd would say, when someone dies, they left town. In that case, they stay in the book.
Yeah, they're all in the book because they're all part of.
Yeah. So in that sense, we did a much more addition. There's very few photos that were that we edited out.
We traded some out.
Yeah.
Like a better shot. I go, this is a better shot of that landscape than the other one. Let's just trade it out. But what we added were some of the events that I mentioned earlier, and also more people that we wanted to honor, including marvelous screaming children, and to try to have the demographics be younger people and older people, that we know, and some we didn't know but met because of this. We have Celesta Bellici in there, who for the longest time, spearheaded the arts and lectures.
And Roman.
And Roman. But Celesta kind of didn't know who we were. We realized we had a million friends in common. But at that point, she kind of is like, Pico, do you know these people? Or Roman, do you know these people? And so when I called her and said we'd like to take your portrait, she wasn't sure about it all. But people close to her said, oh yeah, that's Macduff and Mary. And so we just from the seat of our pants kind of did it.
When on the first book, had to treat this very much like an assignment. I had to treat it as an assignment because when I'm on assignment, everything else becomes secondary to getting the photographs, which meant that we couldn't do any dinners before, maybe schedule a couple hours
It's
after
like having
sunset.
a baby,
Because it, but one of the things that I discovered was that usually if I'm on assignment, if I'm working for the New York Times or National Geographic or so, there's a cachet to who I'm working for, so I can get access to people. But here in Santa Barbara, if I wanted to photograph, say, Wendy Foster, it's like, yeah, I know your dad. I know who you are. Of course, you can, you can take my portrait. So it was a neat experience to be in our hometown because I knew places that I wanted to photograph. But for many years, when I was constantly on the road, Santa Barbara was the place where I switched suitcases and developed film, sent it to my editor and bought more film and then took off. And luckily, Mary and I traveled a lot.
That really solidified our marriage. I couldn't imagine if I was sitting home and he's just taking off and then coming back and changing photos.
No, somebody said,
that's not gonna fly.
didn't you love Bridges of Madison County?
Oh, my mother said that. She just knew I was a photographer. But one thing that we realized was that there was a lot of photography of times that we come together, like after the mudslides, and gathered at the courthouse, and with a candlelight or iPhone light or whatever it was people gathering in solidarity with the community, and people that come to Santa Barbara to visit say, oh, well, it's so beautiful, and there's the beach, and they have this kind of sweet idea of it, but it's also a tough place where artists can't rent studio space because it's too expensive, and we've got a lot of people that are unhoused, and we have earthquakes and fires and mudslides. I mean, there's the normal stuff that any community has. that you have to deal with. And one way was that Macduff would be there documenting it as he went. So we had that material to add to the book. Any other questions? Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The Book of Santa Barbara. Thank you, Mary, Macduff, and Nick. Thank you very much.
Right. And thank you, Chaucer's, for hosting this debut of the second edition of the Book of Santa.
All right.
Enjoy.